welcome to this course. This is the introduction, and as I said in the preview a few days ago, I was running a group of people who were doing some painting, and they were painting about their emotions and their memories. And at the end of the session, each person then talked about their memories, and that's what they really like doing. They used their paintings as a prompt for their memories. It was a group of elderly ladies. And it occurred to me that actually interpreting the paintings could be quite a useful exercise as well. And so also writing poems to go with the paintings. So I created this booklet, which you can see here, and I've included it in this course. And I'll be going through some of the painting, well, I'll be going through all of the paintings as well as some other paintings as part of this course. So this is all about interpretation of painting. Let's move on. Interpreting a painting that conveys an emotion about an old memory involves a blend of art appreciation techniques and psychological insight. So the first thing you do is the initial observation, the first impression. So start by observing the painting without any preconceived notions. Note your initial emotional and visual reactions. What feelings does the painting evoke as you first look at it? And then the visual elements. Identify the key visual elements of the painting, such as colours, shapes, lines, textures, and space. How are these elements arranged? What stands out the most? So that's the first stage, the initial observation, the first impression and the visual elements. The next stage is analyze the use of colour, the emotional associations. Colours can strongly influence emotion. For example, blues and greys might evoke feelings of sadness or nostalgia, but bright colours like yellow or red might suggest happier memories. Consider how the artist's choice of colour palette reflects the emotions tied to the memory. Now, ideally the artist would be there to discuss the painting, but for this course, we're looking at giving you some ideas that when you look at people's paintings, e.g. people posting their paintings in the question answer section, hooray, in response to art therapy exercises, or paintings that you've done, or paintings other people have done, or paintings you see in art galleries. It's just an idea as to how to interpret the emotions behind them. So far we've talked about the initial observation, the first impression, and the visual elements, and then analysed the use of colour. And certainly colour intensity and contrast. You look at how the intensity or softness of colours, as well as the contrast between them, contributes to the overall emotional tone of the painting. So that's the second element. And then you examine the composition. You look at focal points. Identify where your eye is drawn first and how your attention moves around the painting. The arrangement of elements can guide your interpretation of what is important in the memory being depicted. And then space and depth. Consider how the artist uses space. Is the artwork crowded or sparse? Does it use perspective to draw you into a memory or keep you distant as an observer? Fourthly, look for symbolism, objects and figures. Analyze any objects or figures or scenes depicted. Are these recurring symbols or motifs? These might represent specific elements of the memory or broader themes like loss, joy, or change. Also look for abstract elements. If the work is abstract, think about what the abstract shapes and forms suggest to you personally and in general emotional terms. Now notice how I said to you personally. Therefore, the interpretation of the abstract forms depends in part on your own memories, on your own personality, what you bring to the painting, what's happened before you saw the painting, as well as your initial reactions. Therefore, you and I can see the same abstract work and have totally different interpretations. So it's what the abstract shapes mean to us. And therefore, when we're talking about interpretation, it's not, here are 10 key things, and if we all have these 10 key things written down on a sheet in front of us, we're all going to come away with the same interpretation. No, not necessarily. I'll show you some abstract work now. Put your interpretations in the question answer for this lecture. And then in the next part of this lecture, we move into contextual understanding. Okay, you've looked at the abstract paintings, you've put your responses in the question and answer section, I hope. You have? That's great. So we now move to contextual understanding. The artist's background, knowing about the artist's life, culture, and the period in which the work was created can provide insights into the emotional and thematic content of the painting. Well, yes. What if I showed you some paintings and they're all done by artificial intelligence? Would it make any difference to your interpretation of the painting? What if you didn't know it was done by AI? Would that make any difference? What if the person who did the painting was a serial killer? Would that make any difference to your interpretation? I talk about serial killers on a course I've got, a master course, Art Therapy. It's 106 hours long. If you would like a free coupon to this course, you must message me by the 5th of May 2024. And I'll send you a free coupon, but you must go and look at the course description first. It's a very long course, very arduous, and I hope that if you do it, if you start, that you also finish. And it would take you a long, long time. But I do include a section on serial killers and a section on abstract artwork. So, contextual understanding, the artist's background, also the historical and cultural context. Consider the broader historical and cultural context during the time that the painting was made. This can influence how memories are portrayed and understood. Also, personal reflection, personal resonance. Reflect on how the painting resonates with your own experiences and feelings. So again, it's your input into the interpretation. How does that resonate with you? That will help you interpret the impact the painting has on you and interpret the painting, the emotions behind the painting. For example, how does it resonate with your own experiences and feelings, and does it remind you of your own memories or emotions? And then emotional response. Acknowledge your emotional response to the painting and consider how the artist has successfully communicated the emotion of a memory. And lastly, interpretation synthesis, bringing it all together. Combine your observations, your analysis, and your personal reflections to form a comprehensive interpretation of the painting. How do all these elements work together to convey the emotion of a memory? Also, discuss and research. If possible, discuss your thoughts with others, or research interpretations by art critics and historians to expand your understanding. At which point you're sitting there saying, well, it's all very well, he says discuss with others. Who's going to discuss my paintings with me? Who's going to discuss that painting? And that abstract thing he showed us. Who's going to discuss that? Well, the answer is you're on a course with a question-answer section. I use the question-answer sections as discussion forums, so you can put your thoughts in the question-answer section. I have some courses where there are 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 posts in the QA, question-answer. But I also have other courses where after 3 years there's only 10 posts. So it is what you make of it. If you post your reactions, your thoughts, your suggestions, your ideas, others might follow. And then you interact. That's what a global classroom is all about. So, those steps, remember what they were? No? I'll give you 30 seconds, because you may not have been taking notes, which is fine. I'll give you 30 seconds to write down what you think those 7 steps were. 30 seconds starting from now. Okay, initial observation, analyze the use of colour, examine the composition, look for symbolism, contextual understanding, personal reflection, and interpretation synthesis. By following these steps, you can gain a deeper appreciation and understanding of how a painting captures the emotion in an old memory, enriching your experience of the artwork and providing insights into the human experience of memory and emotion. Let's move on to the next lecture where we talk about symbols. Welcome to this lecture. We're talking about symbols, or common symbols or motifs that artists use to represent emotions in their paintings. I mean, artists use a variety of symbols and motifs to convey emotions in their paintings. They draw on cultural, historical, and universal themes to evoke specific feelings or states of mind. For example, colours. I've talked about colours in the previous lecture. What does red represent? Passion, anger, love, or danger? How do you know what it represents in the painting? Well, if you know a bit about the artist's background, and depending on what the scene is, and also your own personal feelings, maybe you will interpret the red in the painting as anger, or danger, or love, or passion. Blue is calmness, sadness, or serenity. Black is mystery, death, evil, or mourning. White is purity, peace, innocence, or emptiness. Yellow is joy, energy, betrayal, or madness, historically linked to its use in paintings to depict insanity, as in Goya's portraits, for example. Green, nature, growth. Envy, he or she was green with envy. Or sickness. Oh, I felt so sick, nausea. Bleh. Yes, well, yes, perhaps that's put you off the course forever. Anyway, so those are different colours. For example, red, blue, black, white, yellow, and green. Secondly, weather elements. Stormy skies, turmoil, conflict, or emotional upheaval. Rain, renewal, sadness, or cleansing. Sunshine, happiness, hope, and vitality. Fog or mist, confusion, mystery, uncertainty, or transition. Natural elements. Trees, life, growth, seasons of life. Dead trees might symbolize desolation or abandonment. Flowers, various emotions depending on the type. Roses are often symbolize love. Roses are red, violets are blue, etc. So roses often symbolize love or romance, while wilted flowers might represent loss or decay. Beware a dentist's waiting room where all the flowers are dead. Water, reflection, depth of emotion, subconscious mind, or in the form of rivers and oceans, a journey or a passage. Animals, doves are peace, spirituality, or the Holy Spirit. Snakes, Garden of Eden, temptation, evil, complexity. Butterflies, transformation, the soul, or rebirth. Lions, courage, authority, or ferocity. Wolves, solitude, mystery, or fear. And then light and shadow. Light, well, light illuminates, so illumination. Understanding, revelation, or purity. Shadows, mystery, the unknown, fear, or hidden aspects. Architectural elements. Bridges, transition, change or connection. Roads or pathways, journeys, life's path or choices. Windows and doors, opportunities, secrets, or new beginnings. Talking of opportunities, make sure you check the resources section for various lectures, whatever course you're on. Often I add extra resources. I don't necessarily announce them in educational announcements, I just add them. Now, for this course, you're just beginning, so check the resources, see if there's any extra art therapy exercises or case studies there. So, architectural elements, we're talking about windows and doors. Also, human features and poses. For example, eyes, windows to the soul, conveying deep emotions or secrets. Hands, expression or interaction, strength or vulnerability. For example, open hands can symbolize openness or plea, while clenched fists might express anger or defiance. Posture. This can indicate a wide range of emotions, such as a slumped posture indicates sadness or defeat. An erect posture signifies pride or readiness, ready to combat, ready to enter the fray. And then objects, clocks and hourglasses, passage of time, mortality or waiting, mirrors, self-reflection, truth or vanity. Books, knowledge, wisdom or escapism. Chains or ropes, bondage, restriction, or the ties that bind. Now, these symbols can vary in meaning. It's very important. If you see an art therapist, qualified, experienced, registered with a professional body, trained, etc., etc. So a qualified professional art therapist, the symbols would be discussed with the art therapist, the emphasis being on therapy, and so it would be two-way discussion. So these symbols can vary in meaning, and it's based on the context of the painting, the culture from which they originate, and the personal style and intention of the artist. Understanding these symbols in their specific artistic and cultural context enhances the viewer's ability to interpret the emotions conveyed in the painting. So think about the symbols that you see in various paintings, and if you put together the various things I've talked about so far, the colour, the texture, the context, the artist's background and the symbols, it all helps with your understanding of the painting and your understanding of the emotions behind the painting. Okay, what about other elements or techniques? Let's move on to the next lecture. Artists employ a variety of other elements in addition to all the symbols that I've been talking about, other elements and techniques to represent emotions in their paintings beyond the use of specific symbols or motifs. And these elements can profoundly impact the viewer's perception and emotional response. For example, brushstroke. Expressive brushstrokes, rapid, visible brushstrokes can convey a sense of urgency, turmoil, or strong emotion, as seen in the works of Vincent van Gogh or the Expressionists. Smooth brushwork, smooth, finely blended brushstrokes might evoke calmness, serenity, or a contemplative mood. Composition, balance and symmetry. Balanced compositions can evoke feelings of stability and calm, while asymmetrical or off-balance compositions might create feelings of tension or dynamism. Lines and shapes. Diagonal lines can suggest movement or instability. Verticals convey strength and stability, and curves can suggest calmness and softness. So that's composition, balance and symmetry, lines and shapes. And then there's lighting and contrast. First of all, the strong contrast between light and dark areas, called chiaroscuro, can create dramatic, intense emotional effects, often used to highlight tension or focus on specific subjects. Subdued lighting, soft, diffused light can evoke intimacy, quietness, or melancholy. Texture, impasto. Thick applications of paint, that's impasto, adds a tactile quality to the work that can enhance the emotional depth, giving the painting a physical presence that reflects intense emotions. Layering. Layering of paint can create depth and complexity, suggesting nuanced or mixed emotions. Scale and proportion. Large scale. Large-scale works can overwhelm the viewer, evoking awe or grandeur. Altered proportions. Exaggerating or distorting proportions can intensify emotional expression, as seen in the work of artists like El Greco or the Surrealists. Perspective and foreshortening. Dramatic perspective. Using unusual or dramatic perspectives can disorient the viewer or create a sense of involvement in the scene, affecting the emotional tone of the painting. Foreshortening can intensify the realism of a scene or direct the viewer's focus in a particular way, thereby guiding the emotional response. Symbolic colour use. Personal or cultural significance. Artists may choose colours based on their personal or cultural significance, which carries specific emotional undertones beyond traditional colour symbolism. Narrative elements. Storytelling. Incorporating elements that suggest a story can engage viewers emotionally as they interpret the narrative or connect it with their own experiences. So again, it's what you bring to the painting, the piece of artwork, and the storytelling element, how it connects with you, but not with you, not with you, not with you, not with you, affects your interpretation. And if it doesn't connect at all, it might affect their interpretation as well. So it's your own input as well. Also, interplay of realism and abstraction. Abstract elements can evoke emotions through forms and colours that resonate with viewers on a subconscious level. What about these? Do these resonate with you on a subconscious level? Is it the form, the colours? Also, realism. Highly realistic details can elicit a strong empathetic response by making the depicted emotions relatable and tangible. And then interaction of figures. Group dynamics. The interaction between figures in a painting can convey complex emotional and relational dynamics, such as isolation, conflict, affection, or solidarity. Now, by combining these techniques in various ways, artists can create complex emotional landscapes that invite viewers to explore and interpret based on their own perceptions and experiences. This dynamic interaction between the artwork and the viewer is what makes the emotional aspect of painting so powerful and personal. So, the question that you are probably asking yourself is, how do artists use the interplay of realism and abstraction to evoke emotions in their paintings? Let's move forward to the next lecture. Artists often navigate between realism and abstraction to evoke complex emotions in their paintings. This interplay allows them to tap into both the relatable and the conceptual aspects of human experience, creating a rich, multi-dimensional emotional effect. For example, realism, emotional connection through familiarity. First of all, detail and accuracy. Realism, achieved through detailed and accurate depiction of subjects, helps viewers connect emotionally by recognizing and empathizing with familiar images. This could be a lifelike portrayal of a human expression, or a vivid landscape that stirs memories and feelings. Also, narrative clarity. Realistic elements often serve to ground a narrative in a context that is understandable and relatable to the viewer, making the emotional undertones more accessible. Abstraction. Emotional depth through interpretation. First of all, emphasizing forms and colours. Abstraction distills reality into basic shapes and colours, allowing artists to play with these elements to evoke moods and feelings directly tied to sensory experience. Colours and forms can resonate with viewers on an instinctual level, bypassing intellectual interpretation. Symbolism and suggestion. Abstract elements can act as symbols or suggest emotions without directly depicting them. This can provoke deeper introspection and personal interpretation, making the emotional experience more profound and individualized. I have a course on abstract art therapy. If you would like a free coupon to that course, you must let me know by direct message to my inbox on Udemy by the 5th of May 2024. That's my offer to you, totally free. Also combining both for enhanced emotional impact. So combining what? Well, combining realism and abstraction. First of all, transitional elements. In some artworks, elements of realism smoothly transition into abstraction. This can symbolize the movement from the concrete to the unknown, from reality to imagination, from clarity to emotion. For example, a realistically painted figure might dissolve into abstract brushstrokes that represent their thoughts or feelings. Then there's juxtaposition. Placing realistic elements alongside abstract ones can create a visual and emotional contrast. This juxtaposition can highlight certain emotions or create a sense of tension, conflict or harmony depending on the artwork's theme. The use of metaphor and allegory. Layered meaning. By using realistic elements symbolically and embedding abstract patterns with deeper meanings, artists can layer multiple interpretations within a single piece. This allows the viewers to uncover emotional depth as they decode the metaphors and allegories. Engaging the viewer's imagination. First of all, incomplete or ambiguous representations. When artists use a mix of realism and abstraction, they often leave parts of the image ambiguous or open-ended. This engages the viewer's imagination to fill in the gaps, making the emotional engagement more active and personal. There is quite a well-known case of someone who was paid in advance to put a painting up in an art gallery, and he put up a blank canvas, and it was called Take the Money and Run. And the idea was that people would look at the blank canvas and interact with the canvas, imagining, visualizing the painting. So the complete interpretation was in the viewer's mind. He said it was abstract.
It starts with a piece of art that looks like this: money in a picture frame, an artistic representation, according to the Danish artist Jens Hunning, of the incoming and cost of living pressures on families. So the Kunsten Art Gallery then loaned more than 500,000 Danish kroner, that's about 120,000 Australian dollars, and they expected Hunning to provide a work of art comparing cost of living pressures in Denmark and Austria. And that's when the artist had his moment of inspiration.
You do something about an average Danish income. Eh? Why don't you do something about your own situation? Eh? So then I thought, no, I'm going to do a fantastic piece for the show.
So, focusing on his own cost of living pressures, the artist sent two pieces to the Kunsten Gallery. They were two empty picture frames. The money, the 500,000 kroner, well, it stayed in the artist's pocket, and he called the work, wait for it, he called it Take the Money and Run. Seriously, he took the money, gave them the empty picture frames and called it Take the Money and Run. I mean, it's kind of literal, but hilarious, isn't it? Hunning said that the breaching of his contract and taking the money was all part of the art. It's all part of the work. Maybe he's got a bit of a case, I suppose, because the gallery did hang the empty frames after all. People went there and looked at them.
Also, reflecting psychological states. So, visualizing internal experiences. Abstract elements can visualize internal psychological states that are not easily represented in a realistic manner. For example, swirling, chaotic brushstrokes might represent confusion or turmoil, while a sharp, clearly defined object might symbolize a stark reality or an unavoidable truth. Cultural and historical contexts. Resonance with art movements. The interplay often resonates with broader art movements. For instance, during periods of great social change or uncertainty, artists might blend realism with abstraction to reflect the complexity and ambiguity of the times. So, by mastering the interplay between realism and abstraction, artists create works that are not just visually striking, but also emotionally resonant, offering viewers a multifaceted experience that engages both their perception and their feelings. This technique is a powerful tool in the artist's repertoire, enabling them to convey emotions in a nuanced and impactful way. Okay, you'd like some examples? Okay, I can show you these, but they might not mean much to you. Well, I could go through them. Well, yes, but what I'd be better for you would be if I showed you some famous works. Yes, that would probably be better. So, let's move to the next lecture. Welcome to this lecture, and this lecture we're going to look at works that combine realism and abstraction. I've already shown you various abstract paintings by one of my co-instructors. Here's some more. Again, your interpretations are welcome, your feedback is welcome. How these paintings impact on you and what your personal emotions are when you see them, post in the question and answer section. You could also visit her work on Instagram, for example, and various websites. Still, really famous artworks that skillfully blend elements of realism and abstraction that create powerful emotional and visual impact. Okay, so that's that. So let's have some even more famous pieces of artwork that skillfully blend elements of realism and abstraction, creating powerful emotional and visual impacts. There's Guernica by Pablo Picasso. Picasso's Guernica is a profound anti-war painting created in response to the bombing of Guernica, Spain by Nazi warplanes during the Spanish Civil War. The painting is executed in a monochrome palette combining cubist abstraction and realistic imagery. Realistic elements such as the bull, horse, and human figures are depicted in a distorted, fragmented forms, typical of Cubism. This abstraction intensifies the emotional expression, conveying chaos, suffering, and the horrors of war. Then Salvador Dali, The Persistence of Memory.
Today we are looking at The Persistence of Memory by Salvador Dali, painted in 1931 and donated to the MoMA collection in 1934. What I've always enjoyed about Dali is that whenever you look at one of his paintings, you see something different every time.
This iconic surrealist painting is known for its soft, melting pocket watches. Dali combines a realistic representation of the landscape and objects with fantastical, dreamlike elements. The realistically painted clocks, draped over surreal, dreamlike landscapes, create a striking contrast. That's the interplay. And this fusion evokes a sense of the fluidity of time and the bizarre nature of dreams. And then the work by Francis Bacon, study after Velasquez's portrait of Pope Innocent X. Bacon's reinterpretation of Velasquez's portrait of Pope Innocent X is a stunning example of how modernist painters incorporate elements of realism within an abstract framework. The figure of the Pope is recognizable, but Bacon distorts and abstracts it with broad, expressive brushstrokes and unsettling colour shifts. This creates a psychological intensity, reflecting themes of isolation and inner turmoil. Then there's Willem de Kooning, Woman 1, 1950 to 1952. De Kooning's series featuring women combines figurative painting with gestural abstraction, characteristic of abstract expressionism. The figure of a woman is both recognizable and heavily abstracted with aggressive brushstroke and exaggerated features. This tension between recognition and abstraction mirrors complex attitudes towards femininity and identity. And there's Marc Chagall, I and the Village. Chagall's painting is a surreal portrayal of his childhood village, featuring dreamlike imagery that blends fantasy with real memories. Though the village and faces are painted in a somewhat realistic manner, they are placed in a fantastical arrangement with vivid colours and abstract patterns, evoking nostalgia intertwined with a whimsical narrative. There's Georgia O'Keeffe, Sky Above Clouds 4. That was painted in 1965, not that long ago. What are we talking about? 59, 60 years, depending on when you see this lecture. Now, this Sky Above Clouds, this painting, is part of a series where O'Keeffe abstracts the view of clouds seen from an airplane. The work features a vast array of what appear to be simplified cloud forms set against a clear sky. The clouds are rendered in a stylized, almost abstract manner, yet the perspective and the horizon provide a sense of scale and realism. This blend invites viewers to contemplate nature's vastness and the interplay between the finite and the infinite. Now, each of these works demonstrates how artists can successfully merge realistic detail with abstract elements to create layers of meaning and emotion. This technique not only challenges viewers' perceptions, but also deepens the narrative and emotional complexity of the artwork. Right, I think it's time for you to do some work now, because I had to research those paintings, so I'd like you to do some work. Here's some questions. What other art movements or styles are known for combining realism and abstraction? Can you recommend any contemporary artists who incorporate realism and abstraction in their work? How do artists decide on the balance between realism and abstraction in their artworks? Okay, those questions are for you. Welcome to this lecture, and for this lecture I'm going to talk about the paintings featured here. Remember, this booklet is with your course. I'm not going to talk about the poetry. You're welcome to give feedback on the poetry, of course you are. But I'm only going to talk about the paintings because they were produced in the therapeutic art session that I was running, and some discussion followed. I'll put the paintings up on screen and I'll look at the paintings while I'm talking to you and see if I give the same interpretation. Okay, let's look at the first one. That's going to be this one here. Now, I should say that there were a range of colours available, and the lady who painted this, she chose only to use green and yellow was added very much as an afterthought. Remember, this is about emotions, and what this shows is her house, and you can see there's no chimney, nothing significant in that, but it's a very straightforward, ordinary house. 2 windows at the top, 2 windows at the bottom. And it's not particularly important, but notice it's square shaped. But most houses are, so does that mean anything? Well, the square implies something that's solid, something that's stable. And you can see that the yellow near it, and there's also some red, does represent flowers, that's true. But remember, the yellow was added afterwards when we're talking about emotions. And she said that just looking at the work that she'd done made her happy. And all around the house is her allotment, or a series of allotments and various plants shown there. And she used to spend most of the summer in her allotment, and being in her allotment gave her a great deal of joy, calmness, tranquility, serenity. And I said, is the allotment actually your garden? And she said, no, what I've done is I put the allotment almost surrounding my house, because you can see, that was the edge of the paper there, almost surrounding the house, because she felt that the house and the allotment were her life. The house was where she slept, where she ate, where she cooked, and where she was happy with her husband at the time. But the allotment was where, because he didn't go out and work with her on the allotment was where she was truly happy, at one with nature. And so that is her painting. And to her, the allotment is surrounding her life. Her life is encapsulated in the place of safety, in the house, in the conventional house. But notice no people are shown. She didn't draw herself bending over the allotment. Those are not people at the top. Those are all the different plants that she was growing. And although the top looks like a series of bricks, it's not. It's very rows and rows. I don't know what they are actually. I don't think we talked about that. It's just it's a range of different things that she was growing, and it made her feel at peace. And the poems that were created represent that. Okay, and this is the next one. So I will now put this up on screen, split screen, and we'll talk about it. Now, what this shows, these jagged lines, is a house, which is the square object. Remember, we're talking about emotions. The first emotion was one of calmness and serenity and what made her feel at peace. This one is almost the complete opposite. Her house was on fire. Her husband did help put the fire out. He didn't die in the fire or anything. He wasn't damaged particularly by the fire. And you can see that the blaze, the redness and the yellow for the flames, and the writing on the right is very, very sharp. And she says, house on fire, fire out. But she's also written the word sad there. So despite the bright colours, the memory of the house burning down, made her feel very, very sad. And she hasn't paid any great time or paid much attention to actually drawing the house. She hasn't put in windows and doors and all that, just square. What she's done is convey the emotion by the sharp, jagged lines, and then the intensity with the yellow. And I said, is this really a metaphor? The house was on fire and then it's all destroyed. And she said, oh, are you talking about me and my husband? And I said, well, I'm just asking. And she said, no, it didn't relate to her private life. Her house really did burn down. It wasn't a case of her marriage had grown cold or anything like that, or her husband putting out the fire or helping to put out the fire. It was actually him putting out the fire of her marriage. So there was no analogy there. There's no parallel. It really was her house. But you can see how if you know the background to the artist, and if you knew that the artist at the time was going through a divorce, then you could say, oh, well, this exciting fire, which is now diminishing and her husband putting it out, symbolizes the end of their relationship. So you can see how looking at a painting, interpreting a painting, if you know the background to the artist, or the time at which they created the painting, how you can relate the painting to their real life, or not, as the case may be. If you don't know the background, but you see the word happy, fire out, you can say, well, it's about a fire, but she's got the word sad there, so perhaps she's sad that the fire is going out. Why would she be sad that her house is on fire, that the fire's being put out? Ah, no, it's the house represents the stability of her relationship, and it's sad that the fire in her relationship is being put out, and the embers are still glowing, but her husband finally dampens everything down. So you can see how you can build interpretations into a painting. And in fact, that's not the purpose of the painting at all. It really is what it says. It's a house burnt down, made her feel sad, her husband helped put the fire out. Okay, for the next one. Now, you might say, and you'd be quite right, this is hardly a painting. And that's right, it's not. It's a series of words and the number's 1999. And they're nearly all red. The moon, I think, is drawn with yellow for the sun. And there's some sunspots, spots in the circle. The round is the sun, the Saturn. And there's Jupiters, plural, Mars, and I think Mars, and 1999. Now, on discussion, and this is why collaboration with the artist, discussing with the artist, reflective questions, why they're all so important. He said, oh, he went to the moon in 1999, which is what, 25 years ago. And I said, really? He said, oh, yes. Now, maybe he went to see a film called The Moon, or maybe he had a dream about the moon, or maybe he really thought he had been to the moon, or I think he's about 75 years old. Maybe he had trained to be an astronaut or something, and in some sort of training he'd been to the moon. I don't know, because we didn't engage in very long discussion. But that would explain the 1999 date figure. Also, the 3 versions of Mars. His idea is that there's a lot of planets that we have yet to discover. So he's just called them Mars and Jupiters. And also he was talking a bit about astronomy and also about sunspots. And he was saying that really the artwork, the painting, has really yet to appear. The future is yet to happen. As we discover more and more and more, he's talking about the planets, so his piece of artwork would develop. And so you could say, as you, looking at a piece of artwork, as you discover more and more and more about the artist and about what they're painting, so your understanding of the painting increases. Okay, let's see. What else we got? Oh yes, I'm going to look at this one now. Now, with this one, there's quite a lot of words on this. Now, the top left letters, M, what does M suggest to you? Well, if somebody goes, it could mean that they are helping themselves to relax. They're perhaps doing yoga. Or it could mean, if it's a shortened that they really like what they're doing, or they like what they're tasting, drinking, eating. Or it could mean they're meditating. So let's stick with the meditating bit. We can see in the text, we had fun this day in India. Visited a house in India. We visited a house near this lake. The owner was a Maharaja. Maharaja? India. So this is to do with meditation. Did this really happen, or was she visualizing it when she was meditating? It turned out this really did happen. But that's because I spoke to her, and I was there when she was creating this anyway. And she said the owner was a Maharaja who rode horses and hunted foxes. Arum lilies grew around the lake, which was lovely. Now, there's nothing significant about arum lilies. She was just representing what she remembered. And this is her emotion, and you can see that she and her husband, because it's her husband who's in the boat, there were a variety of colours available. But she drew the boat, her husband and herself, all the same colour, because she's very, very happy with him. They were as one, as in as one colour. She didn't use different colours for the sentence, arum lilies grew around the lake, which was lovely, but she had put the lilies as part of the piece of artwork and the boat on the water, etc., because the lilies were part of the happiness, part of the emotion. And she said it's her husband who's doing the rowing. Now, her husband is no longer with us, so just creating that piece of artwork brought back memories of very, very happy times. So we've had contentment in the allotment, we've had anguish and sadness and despair, the burning down of a house, and now we have contentment and happiness with a happy memory linked with meditation, India, Maharaji, a sense of tranquility with her husband on water. So smoothly going along water. And again, this could be expanded on with reflective questions. Okay, this next one. Now this one, the person decided they didn't want to do any artwork. They just wanted to write the word happy. I said, okay, I'll leave you a few minutes and see what else you come up with. And they did. They added bits in. The yellow for the A and the two P's and the Y, and for the middle bit for the H, that represents what they said were peaks of happiness. And I said, why are there peaks? Is it not a continuous state? And they said, well, I like listening to Elgar. So she wrote down Elgar at the bottom. And it's listening to Elgar music that makes me happy. She then went on to particular types of Elgar music. And I said, well, what is that redness? What is that redness here? And she said, well, the whole thing, remember, you don't have to be an artist to convey thoughts with art therapy. The redness is a heart. And so she said that listening to Elgar made her feel happy in her heart. So really, this piece of art is her heart, which is the red background, and it's happiness in her heart caused by music, caused by the listening to Elgar. And she didn't say whether she was listening in a quiet room or listening in a car or listening on a train or listening outside in the garden or near a beach. Location wasn't particularly important for her. What was important was simply the music of Elgar. And the music of Elgar made her happy. And that's her piece of artwork. And the reflective questions could be, why Elgar? What particular types of music? Any particular occasion? Does Elgar remind you of any other event? When did you first hear Elgar? Do you ever listen to Elgar with other people? That's how you would develop the conversation from a straightforward, fairly simple piece of artwork. Okay, and the last piece, remember I'm not going through the poetry, I'm just including that for your interest. The last bit is this. Now this is a very interesting piece of work, because if we start off with the words, this was my wedding day. We were very poor, but the bells rang. My husband smiled, I walked up to him and we hugged each other. A few short sentences. Short, simple sentences. No grandiose language, nothing. This was my wedding day. We were very poor, but the bells rang. So even though we were poor, we could have joy, because the bells, when somebody rings bells, then the sound is heard by everyone who's near enough to hear the bells ring. Also, bells are often symbolic because they're usually attached to a church, so the bells are swinging and it reaffirmed the faith. And where did they get married? In church. And so they shared the same love, and they felt that God loved them both and blessed their marriage. So despite being poor, we were very poor, but the bells rang. You don't have to be rich to enjoy music, to enjoy bells, to enjoy the feeling of being married, the service in church. In fact, you could say that the meek will inherit the earth. It's easier for a poor man to enter the kingdom of heaven, etc., etc. So this was my wedding day, and if you look at the clothes they're wearing, yes, she's drawn somebody with arms open, and she's drawn a dress and a bell with some music, but nothing really grand. It's very, very simple. And if this was rewritten, this was my wedding day. We were very poor, but the bells rang. My husband smiled. Smiling is free. Smiling gives you security. It's welcoming. My husband smiled. I walked up to him. We hugged each other. Hugging gives a sense of security. It's an emotion. Again, all of this is free and basic and fundamental and grounding and important. You don't buy any of this. And she drew the church and the pathway to the church. But there were some other paths as well. And I said, what do these other paths represent? Because you can see here, there's only a few people going to church. And she said, well, not many people going to the service. And I said, what's the middle path? And she said, well, that's people who are not sure whether to go into the pathway to the church, hence the question mark, or the other pathway. And I said, what's this other pathway then? That one there. And she said, well, that pathway leads to somewhere, such as a pub. So I said, "Are you talking about alcohol in particular?" She said, no, I'm not. I'm talking about entertainment, really. So it leads to hundreds of people going that way instead of turning to God, instead of turning to religion. They are going the way of entertainment. That's alcohol and music and cinema, in other words, earthly pleasures, rather than giving them all up as far as possible. This was my wedding day. We were very poor, but the bells rang. Giving them all up and finding the peace and the love and the joy and the tranquility that she found and finds in her marriage. So if only people would give up, she was saying, give up all of these, so make the choice instead, choose that, they would hear the bells ring. They would be able to hug each other. They would smile at each other. Even though in material sense they were very poor, they would in fact be very, very happy. And so that little drawing there and here, and a few words, because they're short words, short sentences, basic emotions, conveys so much that in her life she didn't have and doesn't have much money, but she had her faith and has her faith. She has a husband. She has enough to get by, to enjoy the simple pleasures of life. And I think that carries quite a very deep message, and quite a lot can be learnt just from that painting. Right, talking about artwork, let's move to the next lecture. Welcome to this lecture. This is an art therapy exercise, the Tree of Life. I'm going to be showing you some examples of some work done by people at a session that I'm running this afternoon to do with the Tree of Life. And I'll just show these at the end for you to put your own interpretations. So this art therapy exercise, the Tree of Life, and this exercise is designed to help participants reflect on their life experiences and celebrate their personal growth, and also to express themselves creatively in a supportive group setting. It uses simple materials and is tailored for individuals with mild dementia to stimulate memory, improve mood, and enhance communication. I'll put materials up on screen. So first of all, so this is if you're running a group, or you might choose to just do this yourself. But this art therapy exercise is how I'm running this session this afternoon. So I'm going to begin with a brief introduction explaining that the group, because it's with the group, will be drawing a tree of life. And I'll go through a tree and I'll describe its parts, its root, its trunk, its branches, its leaves, its fruits, and I'll explain that each part represents different aspects of people's lives. That'll take maybe, 5 minutes. And then I will ask each participant to draw a large tree on their sheet of paper using a pencil. And if they want any help, then I will offer assistance. And I'll encourage them to think of their roots as their heritage and beginnings, the trunk as their life's journey, the branches as major life decisions or directions, and the leaves and fruits as achievements and cherished memories. So they've drawn I hope they will have drawn the tree in pencil, and then they'll be colouring and detailing. Once the basic tree is sketched, I'll provide crayons for them to colour and decorate their trees. They can add details like birds or a sun or clouds, whatever they feel adds to their story. And while they work, then I'll be playing gentle, soothing music in the background to help create a calm and reflective atmosphere. And then when they've done all that, this after maybe 30, 40 minutes, I will invite the various participants, and it's the same with you, you are a participant, this is a group, albeit a global classroom, albeit internet-based. I'll invite participants who feel comfortable to share their trees and the stories behind them with the group. And then this will lead to a gentle discussion. I'll encourage others to listen and share their thoughts if they wish. And these are some various reflective questions that I'll be asking them. For example, with their roots, what part of your roots are you the most proud of? With the trunk, can you share a significant challenge or success that you've faced along your journey? With the branches, what was one of the most important decisions you made in your life? Why was it so significant? With the leaves, what are some joys or achievements that you remember fondly? With the fruits, they may not have drawn fruits. Also, the fruits may be on the ground. The fruits may be old, they may be rotting. So you ask a slightly different question. For the fruits, what do you hope your legacy would be? How would you like to be remembered? Or you could say, why has that fruit fallen? Did it fall when it was young? Does that represent anyone in your life? Or that fruit, is it fallen because it's old? Is that how you feel? Does it mean the fruit can never get up? Has it stopped growing? Has it stopped developing? Has it lost hope? And then the overall tree. How does your tree represent the life that you have lived? Again, with colours. Why did you choose these colours for your tree? What do they represent to you? And then maybe people will have added things to their drawing. So is there anything you added to your tree that has a special meaning? What is it? And why is it so special? And how did you feel while working on your tree of life? How did it feel to share your story with the group, if people are sharing their story? And then, at the end of the session, I'll close the session by thanking everyone for their participation and courage in sharing personal stories. And maybe I'll ask if I can put the trees up in a common area, the paintings of the trees, a common area, creating a forest of their life stories that they and others can admire. And maybe someone passing will say, oh, that's really good. Oh, that's done by... And they could ask the person can talk about their life, which is so important. As you get older, you feel socially isolated, and if you've got early stage dementia. So this art therapy exercise not only fosters creative expression, but also enhances social interaction, because people are explaining about their life as they grew and the developments in their life. So enhances social interaction among the elderly with mild dementia, providing them with an opportunity to reflect on their lives in a supportive and affirming environment. And maybe we'll talk about some other art therapy exercises as well. What I would do is I'll put their paintings on screen, and also for the next lecture, which is therefore the concluding lecture, I'll just simply put up some art therapy ideas as slides. And if you do those art therapy exercises, that's great. Post them in the question answer section with your feelings as well. Thank you. Welcome to this. This is the concluding lecture. I'm simply going to put up some short art therapy exercises. The first one is memory boxes, and with all of these I would like you to follow the instructions, of course, but to discuss the piece of artwork that you create. So you put a picture of the piece of artwork that you create in the question answer section, an image of it in other words, and notes about the thought processes that you went through as you were creating this piece of art. So with the memory boxes, you will be discussing what items you would choose and why they're meaningful. The second one is collage creation, And as part of the exercise, you would create a collage representing a favourite memory, a place, or a person. And I would like you to share the stories behind your collage with the group of people on this course. The third exercise is simple sculpting. Now for that you would need clay, you'd need Play-Doh, and you'd be encouraged to shape the material into forms that are meaningful and pleasing, and then you discuss the shapes that you created. If you can do that, that would be great, and then you could share it in the question and answer again with your thoughts behind the process. But if you haven't got Play-Doh or portion of clay, you don't want to do it, that's also fine. The next one is finger painting. In particular, I would like you to discuss the feelings and memories that the activity might evoke. Remember, you're putting fingers in the paint, you're focusing on the process and the enjoyment of the activity rather than the outcome. And the last exercise is music and drawing. Now, you choose the music. You're combining auditory stimulation with visual art creation, enhancing cognitive processing and emotional expression. And I'd like you to discuss the piece of artwork that you create in relation to the music played and the emotions or memories it stirred. Now something a bit unusual, and I appreciate this to be very difficult to do as part of this course, as part of this class, a group mural painting. This is to promote social interaction and collaboration, but also allows individual expression. What I would like you to do is to create, on a big sheet of paper, create only in a small portion of it a piece of artwork. Take a picture, post it in the QA. And if anybody else sees it, they take a piece of paper and on a different part of the paper create their own artwork and then merge, if they can, merge the two pictures. See if we can get a group mural going. And again, each person would discuss what they've chosen to add and what was already there and whether that influenced what they added. So that's it. That means we've reached the end of the course. A variety of art therapy exercises, some interpretation. Remember, I am not going to talk about the poetry, but you're welcome to past comments. There are paintings about Tree of Life, also various famous pieces of artwork, and quite a lot of abstract painting for you to comment on. It's been a varied course, and I hope you've participated a lot. And most importantly, I hope you have enjoyed the course. Remember, there are various offers I've made in the course about free coupons to other courses. But I would add, and this applies to anyone who does any of my courses, that if you have now finished the course and done the homework, that's the important bit, then you're entitled to any one of my other courses free of charge. If you then finish that one, including doing all the homework and participating in the question and answer section, then you can have another one free of charge. So, as I've got quite a lot of courses, you could fill your life with my courses. Doesn't sound so good when I say it like that, but anyway, the offer is there for you. Thank you for being on this course.